Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to tonight's stream. And tomorrow, the FA Cup final takes place at Wembley. Chelsea versus Liverpool. Blue versus red, or actually it's going to be yellow versus red because we're going to be playing in the away strip. And actually, the last four teams that have played in their away kit at Wembley in the FA Cup final have gone on to win the trophy. So maybe that could be a good omen for us. Obviously, for the Blues, a third FA Cup final in a row now. Obviously, losing the last two to Arsenal and Leicester, we don't want to become the first team to lose three FA Cup finals in a row. So it is vital that we get a domestic trophy on the board because there's been no domestic trophy since we won the FA Cup in 2018 under Antonio Conte with an Eden Hazard penalty getting us a 1-0 win against Man United. So despite all the European and world trophies, domestic success has been few and far between in recent years for the Blues. So we do need to amend that. There's plenty to get into. So I'm delighted to be joined by two guests to get stuck right into all things FA Cup final and a few other matters that have been going on. George, pleasure as always, mate. And I'm delighted also to be joined by Oli as well. Oli, great to have you, mate. Thanks for coming back again. I'll start with you first then. How are you feeling going into tomorrow? Obviously, we've lost the last two FA Cup finals. As I said, domestic success has not been that frequent despite the trophies we've been picking up over the years. How are you feeling heading into this one?
Quietly confident, Charlie. Quietly confident. We're just reaching that sort of point in the season where Liverpool actually look like, sort of if it bleeds, you can kill it. I'm very interested in actually to see the sort of the lineup, what the lineup will be tomorrow, because I think we'll probably be looking to get in behind quite a lot. I think the reason I'm quietly confident is, like I said, is Liverpool have actually looked pretty fallible. If you look at the first half they had in their Champions League game against Villarreal, against Aston Villa, they struggled as well. You know, they're not quite the machine that they were earlier in the season. Maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's something else. I don't know. But we're just turning up in form and they're just turning down. And so it's going to be a little bit closer than we think because, bear in mind as well, Chelsea always play to their caliber of opponent. So if it's a good opponent, we usually play pretty well. And the last few games we've had against them, we haven't actually lost against them this season. I know the Carabao Cup final was on penalties, but that essentially after 120 minutes was a draw. So, I think there's no reason not to be confident, even with as strong as Liverpool have been.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, George, coming on to you, mate, obviously, as Ollie mentioned, Liverpool they're still winning, but they've been, struggling a little bit more in games. As he mentioned, the poor first half against Villarreal, scraping by Villa, and then obviously the disappointing performance against Tottenham at Anfield. Having said that, it is a final. They do win trophies, but can we take, a bit of confidence from the fact that in the three times we've played them this season, although we've not got the wins to back it up, we have arguably been the better side in pretty much all three games.
Yeah, and it's what Chelsea do best in their, in one-off games. I think when we come to cup-winning machine, I think Chelsea are one of the best in recent history. I share Ollie's views. I'm slightly more optimistic than I was perhaps, a week ago. And I think one of those things that we need to mention is also the recent form of Lukaku. 3 goals in his last 2 games. Looked really impressive, actually, the other night against Leeds. And that could just turn the final, I think, because even though we've been the better side in those recent finals, I think we just don't have that killer edge like a team of Liverpool's caliber where they can put the ball in the net. And we saw that in the Carabao Cup final as well, with so many chances going astray. But just having Lukaku starting to find the net and find a bit of confidence at the right time could be the difference. But I share Ollie's optimism. I think we have every right to be in a one-off game just as matched as Liverpool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with your boys' thoughts on that one. I mean, before we get into a couple of other topics, how important is it then, Ollie, that, despite, as we were discussing kind of off air before we come on, like, how important is it that we do actually win this FA Cup? Because we've lost the last 2 finals, which is, bloody annoying, hard to take when arguably we were the better side in both of those games. But, you start to develop a reputation and get a tag as a side if you consistently lose finals. And now our Wembley record in finals is really poor. I think it's the last 4 we've lost pretty well. I think we've lost 4, last 4, I would say. A couple of Carabao Cup finals and 2 FA Cup finals. That's a record you need to halt as soon as possible. So, like, the importance of this really shouldn't be overlooked, should it?
No, absolutely not. You really would worry to a certain degree about, losing 3 finals on the spin. Getting there is great and all, but at the end of the day, if you don't win the trophy, what is it for? Um, Especially, because it contributes to other things like match fatigue and things like that for players. You could argue that you may as well have gone out in the first round of the FA Cup. I know about the magic of the cup of all that, but in a purely practical sense, if you don't win the thing, what's the point? Um, at least when that's sort of the thing you should be looking at. We should be looking at it from a Chelsea point of view, and all the elite teams like Man City, Liverpool, like that. It's really important to try and buck that trend, because the problem is, if it gets into the players' heads that they can't win at Wembley, that is something that psychologically can affect you in big games, and Wembley is the place. It's not going anywhere. So, and we plan to be in a lot of finals yet, so we don't want that to become a rolling theme.
No, certainly not. I mean, George, do you think the fact that we have lost the last few Wembley finals, I know it's not quite all the same players in the squad, but do you think that will be on the players' minds as they go into this game tomorrow? Or do you think it's something you just can't think about, and this final is a new opportunity to set that straight? Or do you think for some of them that have been there for those finals and lost, it's kind of niggling away in the back of their minds that we better not lose another one?
I think it does. I think it has to play a factor, certainly some of the younger players, because they're desperate to get a bit of silverware. And I know winning the Champions League and the biggest trophy of all has probably subsided a lot of that. But like Oli said, you don't want to get into a situation where certain grounds just don't favour you. And Wembley's been such a great place for us. Drogba's favourite place, we all know. But of late, we've struggled in games that really we should be winning. But I just hope it's a fitting occasion. We all know it's the 150th FA Cup final. It's 2 fitting teams for the occasion. I still think Liverpool are favourites just because of how good they've been. But I think Chelsea love being underdogs in this sense. And for the first time in those so-called 2-3 that we've had, those finals, I think we're the underdogs going into this. And I think Chelsea thrive on being the underdogs. So, who knows? I mean, it is really hard to call, but I'm very excited.
I mean, if it's anywhere near as good as the Carabao Cup final as a spectacle from a game point, not necessarily a result, then we are in for a treat. And with the fact that Liverpool and City are so dominant in the league, and as much as we don't like to admit it, we are still a fair way off competing for the league title. So if we're looking for domestic success, it's vital that we make the most of these opportunities in the domestic cups, and you don't want to pass them up because yes, we've made a lot of finals in the FA Cup recently, and obviously Carabao Cup this year, but you don't know how often those opportunities are going to come around. So we really do need to take advantage of them whilst we have them. But before we come back to the FA Cup and the game itself, lads, just wanted to get your views on a couple of other things that have been doing the rounds today. George, you obviously mentioned him just then in your description. Romelu Lukaku, obviously his birthday today. So hopefully he can celebrate with a goal tomorrow. But he's been in good form the last couple of games. He looks hungry again. He looks a bit fitter to me. His body language looks better. His attitude looks better. He looks more up for it. It looks like he's enjoying himself playing. He's got a smile on his face. He's celebrating when he scores. That hasn't always been the case this season. But with Chelsea and cup finals, we had it at the Carabao Cup with Roman Abramovich's statement the day before the final of transferring the stewardship of the club over. We've had Romelu Lukaku's agent come out today on his birthday and before a cup final with some, quite frankly, unhelpful comments, really. I'll bring them up on the screen now. The timing is odd as well. And to be honest, I don't really know why now. Lukaku, he doesn't need this. This is obviously not coming from him, but obviously Matt Law in a Telegraph reporting this, that the agent of Romelu Lukaku has confirmed his intention to speak with Chelsea's new owners about the striker's future, admitting there was a problem, but he stresses no decisions have been made and no talks with Inter or AC Milan yet. So Federico Pastorello, obviously his agent, has come out with these quotes. I'm not the one to discuss technical choices, but it is obvious that there was a problem. The numbers, however, must be weighted. He is the best scorer of the team this season, even with a lower playing time compared to his teammates. The situation must be carefully evaluated now. The Champions League spot to secure and the FA Cup final. Romelu is totally focused on that. We have not talked about anything else. He also added it's nonsense to speculate on negotiations. Chelsea have just defined the takeover of the club. We still don't know our new, whatever that word is, interlocutors. That must be owners or something, let alone if we can hypothesize talks with Inter, AC or whatever. We have to be patient and wait. before I get on to Lukaku's response, George, what are your views on agents in general? Look, let's not tarnish them all with the same brush. There are some very good football agents out there. I think it's important that we have a balanced view on this, but we do tend to see certain agents, that come out with unhelpful comments, and the timing of them tends to be really bad as well. And this is another example of some poor timing. I mean, what do you make of those comments from his agent?
I mean, if Chelsea should be an Amazon Prime documentary, I don't know why they haven't done it, because what a season it's been with these. And again, just as we had with Lukaku's interview with Sky Italia, months ago, finally now seems to be hitting the ground and getting goals, and then this comes out. You just couldn't write it. I don't know. I'm not a fan of agents at all, to be honest. And I agree, Charlie. I don't want to, tarnish them with the same brush, but I mean, there's just a lack of professionalism. I mean, why do they go on these social media accounts and type away as if, these are employees of... I just don't understand why they think that there's a need to post something out publicly that everyone can see right through, that he's literally just trying to make a bit of buzz around. It's almost like the stock market, trying to bump up, a share or a stock at the right time for the sake of his own benefit. And it's not helpful for anyone. He hasn't listed any information in there. He's saying that Lukaku's got no problems, he's happy. Well, why do we need to know these things? I mean, there's no other incentive other than for him to line his pockets. And it's just seriously unhelpful and just unprofessional. And I don't, if that was my agent, I wouldn't be happy at all. So I just think it's nonsense, really.
Yeah, no, it is really not helpful. I mean, Oli, obviously Lukaku, we'll get onto, has put out a response on his Instagram. But to you, with this, because to me, this would suggest that his agent has not communicated with him at all, or said that, look, I'm gonna put this out today. I'm gonna say this. Are you okay with that? Because obviously, it's coming from his representative, so people would kind of put two and two together and assume that, because his agent's saying it, they've had a conversation and he's happy for that to go out. But the fact that he responded on Instagram with what he did, which I'll bring up on the screen shortly, that was just a complete lack of communication between player and agent, and kind of just whipping up an unnecessary whirlwind. I mean, it's not like the biggest deal going, but I mean, what are your thoughts on, this situation that occurred today?
Yeah, it's not helpful, is it? Especially before a final, and you can tell that the words from the agent in particular, Federico Pastorello, he's trying to keep his own name as well as Lukaku's in the limelight now that Lukaku's actually performing again, and saying that, look, it's not been a good season, but look, he's playing well now, and he's he's very much potentially, according to this agent, in the shop window. And that's not something really, as Chelsea fans, we want to hear, and it's not something we need to hear, especially on the very eve of a final. The most frustrating words, in my opinion, of that entire thing is that we have to be patient and wait. I can understand from a certain degree he means we need to figure out where we stand with the new owners, but what it sounds like he's saying, and this is all speculation because I can't read his mind, is that we have to be patient and wait before we decide to up and leave, and that's the thing that's quite frustrating. It sounds like to me like his agent is already looking for a way out of Chelsea, whether it's true or not for Lukaku, whether he feels that way or not. And it seems like, based on what he's replied earlier, that it's not really true, and it's just really for publicity. There's nothing more to say. Agents do what they do. And some of them are very, very good at it. Of course, one of the best recently we lost, Mino Raiola, and love to him and respect him and to all his family in this time. But Federico Pastorello does not seem like he's that caliber.
No, he's certainly not. I'm just going to bring up his response now, if I can find it. I think it's this one here. Yeah, there we go. So obviously, Lukaku not happy with them. On his Instagram, he posted, "Never ever will I let someone speak for me. I kept my mouth shut and focused on helping a team and end the season in the best way as possible. So if someone out there is trying to say something about me and the club, not in my name." George, personally for me, I think it's great that he's come out and, squashed this and shown, that, he didn't get, these aren't his thoughts. He didn't give the go ahead for this. And I think Chelsea fans will be very pleased to see that he's come out and done this. Are you happy with the response? and I think more players in general should probably come out and shut their agents down or criticize them if they put things out about them without their permission or that are categorically untrue. So, are you pleased to see that Lukaku's put that out to kind of end this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see passionate coming from a player directly, because you often don't get those players mixing with they won't have a bout on social media about these. They'll tend to keep very quiet. Again, the ideal scenario for me is there's just no one speaks. And keep professional. Lukaku does his thing, the agent does his thing behind closed doors. But we all know, unfortunately, in this day and age, that's not how things are done anymore. They're not done behind closed doors. People tend to get hold of stories or headlines before even the player or, in fact, the agent knows about it. So it's not helpful. But I think you can tell Lukaku is happier in himself. He's still, he interacts with the fans during match play as well, which is great to see. But ideally, you don't want to get into this situation. But I like the fact that he has stood up for himself, and it will certainly, it will have some credit for Chelsea fans who have been hard to win over, particularly with the interview that happened months ago with Sky Italia. I mean, he's got a lot still to do to get some fans on his side, but this will help.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think it's good that he's come out, and he is slowly starting to win people back on side. I mean, I've always kind of kept the faith. Yes, it's worn thin at times, but I think he is on the road to redemption, and he is showing what he's capable of. And I think we have actually got a top player that, if we can get the best out of him and utilize him in the best way possible, then he's a really top striker. And I think he is redeeming himself. And yes, I know it's only Wolves and it's only Leeds, people can say. You've still got to score the goals. You've still got to put the performances in. So that is a big plus. And I think if he starts tomorrow, which we'll get on to later, I think that'll be another big boost to his confidence. And if he can get a goal or play well in the final and get us this FA Cup, I think that will set him up nicely for the rest of the season and to head into the pre-season. But we'll come back to Lukaku later on. Oli, I want to come to you now, mate. Obviously, with Chelsea, we've got Todd Boehly pretty much, well, not officially confirmed. There's still a few bits of paperwork to get signed off, etc., as the new owner. But, with Chelsea, transfer window in overdrive, we've seen some deals starting to come to fruition. Erling Haaland going to Manchester City. Other things are picking up. Rumours are picking up. And it was reported today in Italian media, I'm not sure how accurate these sources are, that Chelsea had agreed a deal to sign Ivan Perisic, the Inter Milan wing-back and Croatian international, 33 years of age, on a free transfer at the end of the season. Now, subsequently, Fabrizio Romano has come out and said that there is no deal agreed. I'll just bring it up on the screen now, saying that Perisic has got no agreement with any clubs yet. He's appreciated by Tuchel since January, but Chelsea are still waiting to negotiate. Nothing done. But Inter are still hopeful to reach an agreement with Perisic, but obviously need to improve their offer. Inter, I believe, already got a replacement anyway. They've signed Robin Gosens from Atalanta. I think in January they signed him to come in the summer, or he might already be there now. So they've got a replacement in line. Obviously, Chelsea can't really conclude any official deals because of the ownership's not fully gone through yet. We spoke about this on Twitter earlier. I think it's a shrewd signing. I think it's a sort of smart business that Chelsea need to do more of. And, look, 33 years of age, okay, not ideal, but you look at it on the bigger picture, we're losing a lot of experience on the back line. Rudiger experience. Christensen, despite being 25, 26, is still experienced. Azpilicueta experience. You're then left with what? Thiago Silva, who's 38. You've got Malang Sarr, not very much experience, not really that good anyway. And then you've got Trevor Chalobah as well and Levi Colwell. Very little experience from these guys. So Marcus Alonso probably moving on as well. So for me, it makes sense. Experience, versatile, very good footballer, still playing at a top level. He was man of the match in the Coppa Italia final on Wednesday night, scored 2 goals as well, played a full 120 minutes. He's got the engine. He's versatile, can play left side, can play right side, can also play in the front line if needed. I mean, Oli, I know it's not gone through, but I presume you'd be a fan of this?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this is actually very indicative of the sort of kind of players that Boehly would be looking to bring in. Shrewd signings, not necessarily the absolute biggest names in the world, but smart players. Perisic is, it's clear his quality's still there, his athleticism's still there. Like, as you said, he's able to play on the left and the right. He scores goals. He's bombing up and down the pitch for Inter Milan. It's, as well as that, he knows Lukaku, obviously, from his time at Inter Milan. And as well, it's a nice little stopgap before someone like Ian Maatsen might come back from loan, or if you choose to do the buyback on Tino Livramento's contract. It's a very, very shrewd signing, and of course, it's a free agent deal as well, which Bowley is a fan of with what he does with the LA Dodgers.
Yeah,
So
no, for sure.
It's it makes sense. By all accounts, I think it's a good idea to sign him. But the only thing I would say is, having said all that, you have to take this with a pinch of salt, because contract talks have broken down recently between I believe Inter and Perisic's agent, at least. And so maybe, it's a case of, again, with the agents, of flaunting him to another club in order to bring Inter back to the negotiating table.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, George, obviously, people would say, oh, yeah, but it's going to block the path of potentially a younger player coming through. Well, I think what people need to look at is the bigger picture here. Ian Maatsen, who is from the academy, he's had a good season on loan at Coventry. Borussia Dortmund potentially wanting him on loan. Bringing in Perisic on a free would allow Maatsen to go on loan to potentially a Borussia Dortmund, get more experience at a higher level. And it would also give Chelsea the stopgap of probably, Perisic, if he were to sign, would be probably a 2-year contract, maybe a 1+1. It would give time for Livramento to recover from his ACL injury and for Chelsea to see how he performs after that before potentially looking at a buyback. We've got a lot of signings to make this summer. Defense, the back line needs major surgery. We need someone in midfield, and there's potential talk of maybe bringing some attackers in. That's going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to be able to all be done in one window. Is the free agent market something we need to look at much more often, because it's not something we've done very often? Thiago Silva, a prime example of a deal that has worked fantastically for the free agent market. Do you think that's something Chelsea are going to have to be a little bit smarter with now and shop around in that a bit more?
I think Oli made a great point that touches on, the new ownership. They've made it very clear that they're looking for some sort of a return, and, not just investing heavily in the team and making losses year upon year, which of course Abramovich did. We were losing hundreds of £1 million every season, but he would invest heavily. And I think they want to go down a new business model of almost the Liverpool way, where we make shrewd signings in the background that aren't necessarily the 5-star, all singing, all dancing players, but have the potential to have an impact, whether that be long-term or short-term. And Perisic fits that model, because not only being a free agent, I think people tend to wince and back off when you look at age, but you only have to look at the age of, say, perhaps Thiago Silva and the impact that he's had at the club. But I think certainly with the sports science involved now, that there is no really, age is simply just a number for these types of players. And I think Chelsea just have to be there is going to be a trial and error period. There's no doubt about that. With, some of these will be flops if they do come in. And yeah, there are certainly areas where we probably could use the youth as an example, because we've seen the flourishes of the likes of Mount and James at the club, who have, been given their opportunities. But there's got to be a balance, and there's no doubt that the new ownership, they are going to take a different approach to Chelsea. It's not going to be splashing out, chasing Erling Haaland, for an example, or the next big thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely going to be a change of tax. Chelsea will still spend money. I'm convinced of that. But I think a new model in the transfer market is kind of exactly what we need, a more data-driven approach, which Todd Bowley's going to bring in. Daniel Finkenstein is big behind that as well. Looking at potentially in the future, maybe after this window, bringing in a director of football, going down a more traditional model of how a football club is run. Don't get me wrong, it's been great under Roman, but I think the days of us spending big money on like multiple players every summer could be a thing of the past. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it'll be far less frequently for sure. Let me just bring one thing up from the chat. Why are we not going for Dybala? Do you know what? Dybala's an interesting one. It's weird. Like there seems to be very, very minimal market for him outside of Serie A. Now, I know he's a good player. He's been good for Argentina. He's done well for Juventus. But for some reason, I think people are reluctant to take a bit of a punt on him in terms of outside of Serie A. There's not really any big European teams interested in him. I think he is going to end up signing for Inter Milan. Just very briefly, Oli, Dybala, I don't think it's going to happen, but just for the sake of that comment, do you think he's a profile that would suit Chelsea?
Well, to a certain degree, yes, but also to a certain degree, no. Yes, because he fits a caliber of player that we like to use, where he's sort of like a free roaming attacking player that he's 2-footed and he's reasonably good, at what he does. The only issue is that with that is we've got Havertz already, and playing in sort of like that more sort of false nine striker role. He's not a traditional striker in the same way that Dybala would probably do. Similarly, if you play Dybala as an inside forward, we've already got like Hudson-Odoi, Werner, Pulisic, Ziyech, Mount, who plays there a lot as well. Is there really room for him? If we'd be signing him, it's going to push somebody out who's already integrated into the team, and there's no guarantee that he'll be able to actually adapt to the Premier League. The physicality of it all. Maybe that's why some other teams aren't going in for him. I personally think we don't need him. I think the profile of the kind of profile player we actually would be looking for if we're looking for anyone in attack is someone like Ousmane Dembele, someone with a lot of who's insanely 2-footed, has a lot of dribbling attributes, is able to cut inside, get the ball in the box, has a good passing range, and is very creative. Because that's something that we miss quite a lot, and I think it's probably the difference between Lukaku scoring more goals this season and not. So I think Dybala, not for me, but listen, if he signs, I'll support him all the way, but I wouldn't see it happening.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't think it's the right. I don't think it's quite right for Chelsea. I mean, I'd agree that if reinforcements are going to come in a forward area, first of all, it's going to require existing forwards to already leave. And then the sort of profile we would be looking at would be, as you mentioned, Ousmane Dembele, I think is a top player. Someone that is 2-footed, is pacey, has the ability, is direct, basically. Is not afraid to run at players and take them on. I mean, George, lastly on this, do you think if we are going to make reinforcements in the forward area, I mean, obviously it's not necessarily the priority at all this summer, but if we were to do so, the profile has got to be direct, pacey, and someone like an old school winger, someone that hugs the touchline, not afraid to take players on. We don't really have that at the moment, do we? I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi is kind of meant to be that, but it's been a bit stop-start. It's not really materialised. Been injured for a long time now. If we're going to make reinforcements in that forward area, is that the profile you think we need to go for?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if we're going to persist with Lukaku, the supply to him and getting, to the bar line and cutting back is essential for Lukaku's success, whether that be, playing it along the floor or in the air. And Dembele has that, he has that frightening pace, that ability that when he gets the ball, he'll take on those one-on-ones, even 2v1s, with confidence. I think we have too many players that kind of dip in and out and face the defenders head on and try and find ways around them through passing. But we need someone a little bit more direct. I know the game's changed slightly where you're not hitting the bar line all the time and crossing balls in, but I think if we are going to persist with Lukaku in a system where he's the number 9, I think we need someone that's that. And I think Dybala's a bit more of a number 10 that kind of dips in and out just outside the box. And we've got so many players that are of that caliber already. So I agree with Oli's comment. I think that's not a player that we need.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think it's a full house on that. Good player, but probably not quite right for Chelsea or what we're looking for. But yeah, let's get back to the task at hand then, lads. Obviously, FA Cup final tomorrow. Bit of team news on that. Obviously, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Ben Chilwell still out. I mean, Oli, were you surprised to see pictures today that after that shocking tackle from from Dan James on Wednesday night, that Mateo Kovacic was actually back in training today? Tuchel and the presser saying that he's got heavy pain, but they're going to see how he does, and kind of now is the time to take risks if we're ever going to take risks. How surprised were you to see him back in? Because it looked like a pretty bad challenge. It was a pretty awful challenge. He's in heavy pain still, was what Tuchel said. I mean, how surprised were you to see him training today?
Surprised and also not surprised. Surprised because it was a hospital challenge by Dan James. It was really, really nasty. It strikes me as like it's already a poor challenge, but because James is so quick, he went in with about 4 times as much force as was necessary, and that's why he got the red card, because it's dangerous play. And so I am surprised to a certain degree because he went off limping and he looked for a minute like his season could be done, because it looked like a really poor challenge. He didn't really look like he was shaking it off. Now he is playing through it seems like he's playing through a lot of pain. And I think Tuchel mentioned that actually he already had some ligaments torn in his foot. So he's been playing through pain for a while by the sound of things. So to a certain degree, yeah, I am surprised because it looked like an absolute hospital challenge. But at the same time, Kovacic is absolutely tough as nails. And so, if he wants to go back in, he's determined to go back in, he will. Same with Kante, who's also been training today. I think despite everything, I think we'll actually see a very strong level of midfield tomorrow, hopefully. Especially because they won't have Fabinho, which is a very, very pertinent thing to know.
Yeah, so obviously a big plus. I mean, George, would you agree with Tuchel that obviously with players that are kind of maybe not fully fit or a little bit touch and go, that the final is the right time to take risks? I suppose with 5 substitutions as well in the final and in the cup competitions this season, you can kind of, get away with taking a bit more risk because you've got 2 extra changes from the bench. I mean, would you agree with that? Do you think the finals are the time to take risks with players that are not quite fully there on their fitness? Would you go along with that?
I think so. I think you've got to judge it by the players, not just the performance, but all top players want to play these sorts of matches. I mean, if we were talking about Watford at home next, I'm probably sure Kovacic would probably say, "Look, Gaffer, I'll probably miss this one. I'm not feeling 100% because it's the FA Cup final. Of course, he wants to play, and he'll say, "Look, I've got pain, but I'll be fine." I'm sure they'll give it an injection. We're just going to have to see how it is, but we know for a fact that if Kovacic plays, he's going to give it 110%, and we're a better team if he's playing. So if he has to come off 20 minutes in because he's struggling, are we going to argue that was a poor decision? I don't think so. I think it's more of a risk to play someone who you're asking a lot of to play the full game and then ask Kovacic to rescue it if it all goes wrong with pain. I'd prefer to start your strongest 11 always for a cup final.
Yeah, no, I think I fully agree on that, to be honest. There's not an awful lot to lose. And as you say, I think all Chelsea fans, if Kovacic, can start, then I think the vast majority of fans will want to see him start. And, if it doesn't quite work out, as I said, you've got the 5 subs from the bench. It's not completely the end of the world. I think it is getting to the stage of the season, particularly in a final where, you need to take the risks. And the risks are definitely worth taking. I mean, obviously, Oli, we've done well against Liverpool this season in the 3 games. We touched on it earlier. What have we got to do tomorrow to just get that little bit extra and get over the line and get a win against these? Because despite the fact that we've played well, we just haven't quite got the job done. What's going to make the difference tomorrow?
It's a mix of a few things, right? Lukaku's got to be on form. That, if he starts, that's got to be absolutely imperative. Secondly, the tactics have got to be right. We can't be, passing it on the deck trying to be a tiki-taka team, because when you're playing that against Liverpool, all they're going to do is take the ball off you, smash it down the other end, and before you know it, you're 1-0 down, 2-0 down, 3-0 down, and the game's over by half-time. Where you have to be hitting Liverpool is you have to be hitting them with their suicidally high line. You have to be getting them behind, which is arguably why you could say maybe you could throw Werner in, maybe you could throw Pulisic in for tomorrow. So it's quite an interesting thing, because Liverpool, actually, the way that they play is quite conducive to how a lot of the Chelsea players can play against them. So, and the last thing that we're going to need is the belief. We're going to need the motivation. And I'm very pleased to think that I think the rough patch that we were having recently seems to be more behind us now. I remember Mount coming out in the media a day or so ago and saying that there were some things that needed to be said. And it seems like since then, it seems whatever was going on behind the scenes, it's gotten off people's chests and something has clicked back into gear for Chelsea. We've looked a lot better in our last 2 games. Liverpool haven't looked as good. So the belief has to be there as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think belief is a large part of it. Player for player. I mean, I don't think Liverpool player for player are that much better than us, if they are better than us at all. Yeah, you could argue their front 3 is obviously more tried and tested and more, efficient and more clinical than ours. But, it's not, it's what happens on the day, realistically. But I mean, George, do you agree with Oli? A big part of this is going to be belief. Anything else you think that's going to be important on the day? Obviously, belief and taking our chances. I think that's the big thing. I think you will create chances against Liverpool, as we've demonstrated, as other teams have demonstrated. You can get at them. It's just going to be, yes, our attack has looked better the last 2 games, but it's all about, will they turn up in this final or will they not? That's ultimately pretty much going to be the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's chances and it's also killing moments in the game where you're on top and finishing it. If we got that second goal in the League Cup final, I think the game's done. We just didn't, when we were cruising, we just didn't take the opportunities. And similarly in the other games, we went 1-0 up at Anfield and just, we seemed to be on top. We just didn't kill the game. Look, there's going to be, there's no hiding the fact that Liverpool have got a great team, and I'm sure we'll do the same tactics as everyone else. Get Lukaku onto Matip rather than Van Dijk. I'm sure that's going to be a tactic that we ploy. Starting well has got to be an important asset as well tomorrow. Not going
targeting Trent Alexander-Arnold as well.
Yes, yeah. You mentioned the high line there, and we know that he's got frailties defending. So we've got pace behind. We need to catch them on the break. But from what I remember, the games that we've played them, particularly that first 15, 20 minutes, we've been really on top, and we've just got to take the chances. But I believe it's a huge thing. But what I would add to that is that, like I said at the top, so Chelsea are underdogs, and I think Liverpool got more to lose tomorrow. We could be the first side to effectively end their so-called quadruple talk. I know the league, a lot of people are saying it's gone already, but they've still got games to play. We can effectively end that tomorrow. I think Chelsea don't have a lot to lose tomorrow. We can go out, play with confidence, and stop the quadruple, which I'm sure all Chelsea fans and Universal fans, non-Liverpool fans would love. So let's believe.
No, mate, that's motivation enough in itself. I mean, there'd be nothing worse, absolutely nothing worse than a Liverpool quadruple. It'd be the worst thing to ever happen in football. Or you would never ever hear the end of it. You really wouldn't. And
they're calling it the Klopp druple.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It really is. I mean, I'm glad. I'm glad I'm going to the game tomorrow, so I don't have to listen to Sky Sports' ridiculously biased coverage of Liverpool. And I wouldn't be surprised, boys, if we actually won, that they still painted it out as, Liverpool being the best side and, they've done really well and not really give us any credit for winning. So, I think we should be prepared for that as well. But ultimately, none of that really matters. Let's get into this lineup then. Guys, before we get into the lineup, please do smash a like on the stream. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please click that subscribe button. It really helps out. Trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the season. It's quite ambitious, but please do click the button and spread the word. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's get this lineup up then, guys. So, I've got it in a back five, back three, whatever you want to call it. I don't think there's any chance we play a back four. I've got obviously Edouard Mendy in goal. Guys, anyone object to that? I think that's fairly obvious. He's the best. He's our number one keeper.
There's something to be said about if it goes to penalties and what you do then. But no, starting the game, it's got to be Mendy.
I was going to come on to that quickly because Tuchel was asked about that in the press conference today. I'll read his quotes out now. He was asked about whether, Kepa or Mendy are the penalties happen. He said, I will not tell you. I have an opinion. You will see. If we decided like Carabao Cup before, we will do it. Let's see if we have changes left, how the match goes with Edu. We have a plan for what we can do. George, what would your plan be if it does go to the dreaded spot kicks? If there's a change left, would you do it? It didn't work last time, but what would you be inclined to do? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh God, I hate the fact that you come to me first for this one. I really don't know. Look, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, aren't you? It's one of those situations. If Kepa slotted the goal the last time, then no one complains. The fact that he's thought he's taken a goal kick, it's blasted over. Everyone's saying, "Why did you change it?" I think it depends on the game. I think it was a mistake in the cup final last time because Mendy was playing so well. Yeah. The saves he made. I think if he's not having a particularly good game, I think you can change it. But if he feels unbeatable, which he did in that League Cup game, I think I completely understand why he did it last time. But I think you've just got to sometimes, rather than being that's the plan and whatever happens, that will stick to that. You can sometimes be a bit more adaptable depending on how the game's going. And I think he sometimes is a bit reluctant to do so. So for me, long story short, I think it's got to be in the game that he decides that.
Yeah, for me, I think, yes, as you say, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you win, then it's fine. If you don't win, it's like, why didn't you bring him on? Whatever. Or if you lose, bring in the sub keeper on, then it's like, why did you sub him on? So it's a difficult one. But for me, I just think that we tried it last time, it didn't work. I think it's one of those things that also brings a huge amount of unnecessary pressure on the substitute keeper coming on as well, because they've literally come on to do one thing. And if they don't do it, they're kind of made out to be a failure as such, which is not really the case. For me, I'd leave Mendy on. Oli, would you, if we were to go to the penalties, would you very much be an advocate of just sticking with Mendy?
See, I'm a fan of chaos, Charlie.
Yeah.
I want the redemption arc. That's what I really want. I want the 119th minute. Kepa warming up on the sidelines. Everyone's losing their minds on Twitter in the stadium. Everyone's worried, and then he can come on and save the day. And that would be it. Would bring full circle. It would be like a movie where like he had the opportunity to win it on the biggest stage before, and he fluffed his lines, and now he's got a second chance. And to be fair, that could be a really good motivator for him. But ultimately, if you're thinking from a practical perspective, I've got to agree with George. It's got to be it's got to be dependent on the game. Mendy was having the game of his life in the Carabao Cup. He probably would have, you can't say he definitely would have, but with the way he was playing, he definitely could have won the penalty shootout. He certainly could have scored his penalty.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that was a big relief for Liverpool players when they saw him go off, because it was one of the best games he's had for Chelsea. In the back three, then, I presume it's going to be the same for all of us in terms of two players in Rudiger and Thiago Silva. The makeup of the last centre-back in the back three is probably more up for debate. Oli, I'll come to you first. We saw Trevor Chalobah play there against Leeds in the week. Did well. Tuchel was full of praise for him in general this season. Christensen played the full 90, obviously in for Thiago Silva. You wouldn't expect him to start in that position. The fact that Azpilicueta was on the bench and only played the last 10 to 12 minutes, would that very much suggest to you that Tuchel's going to go with Aspi in that as that third centre-back? And is that what you would do?
Truthfully, I don't think even Tuchel knows who he's going to choose for this yet. Yeah, even in the last game against Leeds, when Chalobah played, he decided it on the morning. Like, they decided it sort of day of. So I think ultimately that's probably where a lot of the tactical decisions come down as well. Because if you change the way you play, then it's who you choose dictates how you play. You could even put Reece James there if you wanted to. I wouldn't, but you could. Ultimately, I would probably actually roll with Chalobah again. Yeah. You've certainly got Aspi. Aspi would be an excellent player to come on if we're 1-0 up in, say, the 65th minute. He's going to lock down the game. He's got the experience. He's got the wherewithal and the know-how, and that would be a really excellent thing to do then, once everyone's that little bit more tired. But if, you can imagine it as because Dave's not really a centre-back, not really. And if you've got someone like Luis Diaz or Mane or Salah bearing down on him on that left-hand side, it's going to be a really long afternoon for Azpilicueta.
Yeah, I would agree. It's so tough to say. I would probably go with Chalobah as well. He played really well in the League Cup final against Liverpool. He's had a fantastic season. I think he should have played a lot more minutes in recent matches than he actually has done. I don't think Christensen will play, to be perfectly honest. I really don't. It wouldn't be a disaster if he did, but I can't see him getting the nod.
He'll have a tummy ache. It'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll have stomach cramps. It's a big occasion. He'll be done. George, I'll come to you next, mate. Ollie's gone with Chalobah. I'd personally go with Chalobah as well. Are you full house Chalobah, or do you think Aspi should get the nod?
Well, I was doing this in my lunch break, so I hope no one was watching from work, because I should have been doing some work really. But I had Chalobah question mark, and I'm glad that you boys have said this, because I thought I came out from that office at lunchtime and I thought, am I making a really mad call, considering I'm so in for playing your best team and playing people with experience for finals, and we've got the next Mr. Chelsea, Dave, who's won it all at the club and so professional. But I go full house. I do go Chalobah. I just think he's got that pace. And I was just looking back. My only thing for it was how well he played. Didn't he come on in the League Cup? I swear he played.
No, I think he started, didn't he?
And he played so well, I thought. So
he was excellent. He really was.
Yeah, I think he really matched, the potential danger of Diaz and everyone else. And I agree with Ollie's comments. I think if you've got someone like a Diaz or a Mane, you'd want Chalobah. I know he's sometimes suspect where he's a bit rash in the box, but I think
it's a different story as well when you've got Thiago Silva in the middle, because he's going to be able to marshal the back line a lot better. If you've got Christensen, say if Silva for whatever reason wasn't playing, you've got, say, Christensen in the middle, then you probably do go with Azpilicueta on the right-hand side, because then you've got that experience. You need someone who's going to be able to organise the back line. I'd be a lot more worried for the game, I can tell you that much. But you need, you need someone, a leader out there in the defence to marshal the back line, and that's got to be Thiago Silva. So in that case, I think he gets the best out of Chalobah. Yeah,
for sure. Very briefly, Ollie, do you think there's any risk potentially in not playing your captain, someone that's won it all, has got massive experience in finals? Do you think there's a risk in leaving him out?
No, I don't think so. Well, to a certain, it depends on the player. Like if they're massively influential, we know SP is, but we've got leaders all over the team. You've got Jorginho, who his teammates call him Radio Jorginho because he's constantly shouting at people and telling people where to go. You got Thiago Silva, who's one of the greatest leaders probably ever in football. Even senior players that you're going to have, like Rudiger, even though he's leaving, he's going to be able to do something good. Mendy's going to be able to tell people what to do. Even someone like Alonso or Kovacic, will be able to marshal their parts of the pitch really well. So I don't think it's a massive loss from like a leadership perspective, especially when you've got someone like Jorginho on the pitch, which we'll come to shortly, I think. But I think ultimately, I think you've got to go with your strongest 11 in terms of both leadership and ability. And I think luckily for both cases, I think that still stands to not include Azpilicueta.
Yeah, for sure. I think, up against, as you said, Luis Diaz or Salah or Mane, got a lot of pace. Aspie in his 30s now, has never been blessed with pace anyway. I'd much rather Chalobah up against one of these guys with his more pace, younger, more energetic, etc. I think he'd have a better chance for sure. George, fullbacks, I've already written them in. I presume this is what we all think. Reece James, Marcus Alonso. How important is Reece James going to be tomorrow? Probably, one of our main attacking outlets. He's had some good games recently. How vital is he tomorrow to ultimately us ending up with the trophy or not?
For me, crucial. Probably one of the most, if not the most crucial player on the pitch, because not only the service to Lukaku, which if we think Lukaku is going to be the number 9 tomorrow, but just his all in all presence. The way he's so physical, the way he demands that right hand side. There's no doubt that they'll try and do a double up job on him, but I think he's got to perform well tomorrow, and Liverpool know that he's our danger outlet. But I mean, they picked themselves. But surprisingly, Alonso actually, again, he had a very, very good cup final against Liverpool. I thought he played really, really well. So I've got no concerns. Obviously, we're a bit forced in the matter anyway. They picked themselves, but no, I've got no qualms. But to your question, I think he's absolutely pivotal for tomorrow.
Yeah. And left hand side, obviously, as George just touched on, Oli, despite what people may think of him, whether they like him or not, he's probably going to be moving on in the summer. His priority is to return to Spain. Is going to be Marcus Alonso. Do you think he's got one more special performance in him before he potentially leaves the club? We've seen it. Old Trafford, great goal. Bernabeu, he turned up. Cup final, he was superb. Do you think he's got one more in there?
Fear it. Run from it. Destiny arrives all the same. Alonso's big for big moments. He's absolutely made for big moments. He scores goals. He knows where the goal is, and I wouldn't be surprised. If anyone was going to score, it would be him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, don't rule it out. Midfield, lads, this is going to be tricky now because everyone is kind of available. Jorginho, Ruben, Kova, and Kante all back in the mix for 4 players for 2 starting spots. This is a real tricky one. Again, this is weighing up the risk and reward. Oli, I'll stick with you. Kova and Kante obviously didn't. They did play. Well, Kova played in midweek, not only half an hour. Kante missed out. With what Tuchel was referring to with risk earlier and what we've kind of discussed, for you, would you go with one or both of them from the off? Personally, I think both of them is a bit too risky from the off, but I'd certainly go with one of them. Now, Kante seems to always start big games, but then Kova's our most important midfield player. Like, this is a tricky one. I mean, would you agree with me that it's too risky to start both of them?
Yeah, I would say so, because it only takes, one Naby Keita foot to the groin, and suddenly, you're down a player, a very important player at that. So I think you've got to be careful, especially in the sense that I reckon for me personally, it's smarter to start Jorginho and Kovacic. Yeah. And the reason being is because then you can bring Energizer Bunny Kante on halfway through, in the second half, or even towards the end of the game, and he's got the energy to be able to keep up with, when everyone else's legs are tired, he'll be absolutely running rampant out there. The same with Mount as well, So I think it's you get, in my opinion, you have Jorginho, you have Kovacic, you see how long Kovacic can make it, and then once he can't anymore, then you stick Kante in.
Yeah, I would be in agreement to go with Kovacic and Jorginho, and then Kante from the bench. However, I think Tuchel could roll the dice and go with both, or it could be Kante with Cover on the bench potentially. But I'd agree with you, Oli. I'd go Cover and Jorginho. George, would you agree? Would you share the sentiment that myself and Oli have got, that it's too risky to start both of them together?
Too risky, but I had another question mark on my paper because I was very busy at lunch, as you know, which was Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I'm going to make a case for Loftus-Cheek. Look, I completely understand the point, and again, I'm the one who spouts, play your best team or play players with experience. We know that Jorginho controls the game very well, allows Kovacic to go that license for with that experience. But for me, I get the point that maybe Ruben would be better coming off the bench when the game's a bit more stretched, because he can get into those pockets. But I like the idea of someone being given the biggest stage to, reward his form of late. And I don't know. If it was me, I would be playing Loftus-Cheek, but I don't think he will play from the start. But I'd
be interested to see if Loftus-Cheek was going to play. I'd be interested to see him come on, but not in midfield. I'd like to see James move back to centre back and then him to come on at right wing back, and see actually how he did there. If it's the case where it's one of those games where James really isn't getting anywhere down that right hand side attacking wise, if he needs to come back a little bit in order to make that pass, then you can have someone like Loftus-Cheek, who's actually a very, astute dribbler, holds the ball really well, very physical, get down that right-hand side, Andy Robertson's an okay defender, but he's not amazing. So, it could happen. It could work. Personally, I think that would be the safer option for me. Personally, for me, you can't go for Loftus-Cheek in the midfield tomorrow. Only because if you have Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek, it's probably not quick enough. If you have Kovacic and Loftus-Cheek, it's not defensive enough. If you have Kante and Loftus-Cheek, it's not composed enough. So ultimately, you need one of Jorginho and Kovacic on the pitch at once. But if you add Loftus-Cheek, once the game's stretched, different story. But definitely when everyone's 100% running around like madness, I don't think so.
Yeah, I get the point. I'm a big fan of Loftus-Cheek, like a lot of Chelsea fans are. I want to make a case for him, and I think he would be deserving to start for sure. The goal in the semi-final. Obviously, he's done well in the league in the last few games, last month or so, and it would be a big reward and a big faith in him from the gaffer if he was to get the nod in the final. But I just can't really see it, and I'm in a midfield two with kind of the combination we're looking at. I'm kind of struggling to make a real big, strong case for it. I'd love to see him start, but I just can't really see it happening. And I know, people in the chat saying that Kante should start as a big game player. Agreed with that. We just don't know how fit Kante is. Agree, we don't know how fit Kovacic is either. But for me, I actually think it's got to the point now where Kovacic is actually, I'd almost say, he's more important to this midfield than Kante is. I know that might sound ridiculous to some people, but I actually think he is. He's our most important midfield player. So if there's any chance that he can give us, even if he can just give us a half, I think it's worth taking the risk on starting him. Other people in the chat saying Kante and J5. Yeah, it could well be. I mean, this is one that's up for debate. I think whether it's Kante and Jorginho, whether it's Kante and Kovacic, whether it's Kovacic and Jorginho, I don't think there's an awful lot of difference in it. But, I think Kante would be a good option to have from the bench. But you could also make the case of, if we were up in the game, Jorginho is a great one to come on, slow it down, control the game, dictate the tempo from the middle of the park. You've got different options. But, I mean, George, obviously you were making a case of Ruben. If it's not Ruben, are you agreeing with me and Oli, Cover and Jorginho, or would you think that Kante should start?
Yeah, look, and that Ruben was just my personal choice.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be the case tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. I think I agree with you guys. I think once the game's stretched, you've got a bit more license. If we're chasing a game, to say, Ruben, look, get into those pockets, burst forward, give us something different. Similar with Jorginho, he can sit and hold. Whether the Fabinho not playing and the Liverpool midfield having to take some more responsibility defensively might play some part in the selection tomorrow. But no, I agree, boys. It was just my personal place for him. But I think that will be the two tomorrow.
Front three then. This is where it gets interesting. Always a good debate to be had here. But one player that there's no debate to be had about, Mason Mount, obviously nominated for the PFA Young Player of the Year today. Not sure why he wasn't nominated for the full Player of the Year award. that kind of baffles me. But anyway, that's a different conversation. 29 goal and assist contributions this season, 23 years of age, having an unbelievable season. Great goal against Leeds in the week. He'll be desperate to make up for the fact that he missed 2 sitters in the Carabao Cup final, which he should have put definitely one of them away, and it probably could have won us the trophy. Oli, no doubts, Mason Mount for you, right-hand side, and he'll be desperate to make amends, won't he? He won't have forgotten the Carabao Cup final.
100%. 100%. Mount has to start. The only thing I would say is that really I think Mount could start on either wing. And the reason I say that is because, well, oftentimes our wingers swap in games anyway. But on top of that, I think he would really cause a lot of problems for Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right-hand side. And I think in doing that, in putting on Alexander-Arnold under a lot of pressure, it's going to force him back a little bit and not let him play his game as well. So you could argue, like left wing, right wing, they'll probably swap in game and take turns anyway. But yeah, Mount has to start for me.
100%. George, you've been bashing that Mason Mount drum for a while now. I was critical of him in the past of his output not being good enough. He's dramatically improved that. This has been a phenomenal season from him. And the fact that Ward-Prowse, I just seen it in the chat now, I did see it earlier. The fact that Ward-Prowse has been nominated, is a nominee for the PFA Player of the Year, and Mason Mount isn't, is absolutely criminal. I don't know what clowns are doing that selection policy, but how Ward-Prowse has been nominated for the full awards and Mount is only in the young player, not the full one.
I reckon they were struggling, I think they were struggling to find people who they thought could actually go in there who weren't also possible for Young Player of the Year.
The list is weird, isn't it? Like, you got to play it. I'm not saying
I think,
Bowen's a bad player, but Bowen's is in the running for Player of the Year.
I think it's because it's like you've got basically just De Bruyne and then maybe one of Salah or Mane and then everyone else.
Mate, is Son in there?
Maybe,
the Son is there, yeah.
Yeah, like so he'll he's like the other one who's like sort of like up there, but like after that you go, well, who else is even close? Well, not really anybody, especially for this season. Yeah,
no, that's a fair point. Obviously Mason Mount we're all in agreement with. I'll put Christian Pulisic in. I think last 2 games he's been great. I thought he was really good playing in more of a number 10 role against Wolves, and then he set Romelu Lukaku up for the second goal, which was nice. He was influential in that 10 role. And then against Leeds, I thought it was really good as well. Took his goal really well from the edge of the box. He looks like to be coming into a purple patch of form. I think he's very much a confidence player. When he's in form, just keep playing him. George, Christian Pulisic on that left-hand side for you. Do you want to make a case for anyone else? Maybe Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech?
No, I like Timo Werner. I really like Christian Pulisic. I think he's a very intelligent footballer. I think he gets a lot of stick because he's replacing people make the comparison somehow with Eden Hazard, which is just an unfair comparison. It's a completely different footballer. I think he shows moments of magic. He's unselfish, takes chances really well, and again played quite well in the fixture against Liverpool at Wembley. Had a very early chance that if he connects with it a bit better, rather than going straight down the middle, I think he scores. And like you said, mate, it's all about form and momentum at the moment, and I think he's probably the best on that side.
Oli, for you, Christian Pulisic as well, or do you think? I mean, we mentioned it earlier. Liverpool do play a high line. Is there a shout for Werner to come back in potentially? But I mean, Pulisic for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think Perisic for me. I was trying to think in my head about, if I was going to pick anyone else, who would I pick and why? Yeah, you can say Werner for his ability to get behind and with a lot of pace. You could say if people are already running behind with pace, then maybe you want Ziyech to play that creative ball in behind. But at the end of the day, I think Pulisic probably sort of saddles the middle of those 2 options. He's quick, he's direct. He knows where the goal is, probably better than both of them. Maybe not Ziyech, but certainly better than Werner. And we need someone who's going to be able to finish their chances and not be offside as well. Werner is a brilliant player to come on, like we were saying earlier, a bit like with perhaps with Loftus-Cheek, when the game's really stretched, when there are tired legs, when you then add into the mix Loftus-Cheek, Kante, Werner, suddenly the whole pitch is re-energized again from back to front. So I think I think Werner tomorrow will actually be quite an important part of the game plan, but I don't think he'll start.
No, for sure. I mean, moving on to the last position then, lads. 10 days ago, this is not even a conversation. It's Kai Havertz all day long. Now, for me, it's an absolute certainty that Romelu Lukaku has to start. Tuchel saying earlier in the presser that, it doesn't tend to be Lukaku and Havertz together. It always tends to be one or the other. I think when both play together, Lukaku has to play that centre forward role, and then Havertz is kind of nowhere near as effective in one of those wide or inside 10 positions. And Lukaku is not going to play there either. So, for me, I've said it's one or the other. Tuchel's basically confirmed it's one or the other. What makes me say Lukaku, the fact he's bang in form, 3 goals in his last 2 games, he looks hungry, he looks up for it. And also the fact that in the last 2 games, Kai Havertz played 6 minutes against Wolves and no minutes against Leeds. You wouldn't want to go into a cup final having played 6 minutes out of 180 in the last 2 games. So you'd be slightly underprepared. I think at the moment, the forms of Lukaku, even prior to these goals that he scored in the last 2 games, Kai Havertz wasn't really tearing trees up. He was going for a difficult patch. George, you've been a staunch Lukaku critic. Is it a slice of humble pie for you and he's in the FA Cup final lineup?
Well, we'll see, won't we? He can still play terrible for 90 minutes.
But is he in your lineup tomorrow?
Yeah, he is 100%. Yeah. I have to say, after turning off the Leeds match, I saw a totally different player. Looking for the ball, muscling players off, turning them. Even the disallowed goal was outrageous, really. The finish, the confidence to have that finish, to chip the goalkeeper and let it nestle in the corner. And just, we were there. I mean, the Wolves game, just, taking shots outside the box. I know even the goal against Leeds was somehow, he made it so much more difficult for himself somehow by just delaying the shot. But
the composure was good, though.
Yeah, and he's got the confidence. That's what you can see now. Obviously, it's a different kettle of fish coming up against Van Dijk. I'm sure he'll try and target Matip instead and drift over. But look, this is the moments. This is what we bought him for. If he can win us the cup final with a single goal, just like Kai Havertz did in the Champions League in Porto, I'm sure he can recoup all those critics, and that fee pays for itself.
Mate, if he scores the winner, I might run on the pitch.
I'm a highway up, so it's a long way down for me.
To be fair, yeah, that's a good point. It might be a bit of a trek to get there. But, I mean, Oli, Lukaku for you, I mean, obviously, as I said, Kai Havertz has not played much football in the last 2 games. However, he does have that kind of big game record in terms of winning goals in the Club World Cup final, winning goal in Champions League. Do you think that might come into Tuchel's thinking, potentially? And for you, is it Lukaku definitely as well?
It is Lukaku, and yeah, it will come into Tuchel's thinking 100%. It's quite a difficult thing, and I hate to say it this way because it sounds like another sort of slightly cop-out answer, but it will depend on how the game is going. I think Lukaku will start because he's the player in form. You'd be mad not to start him at the moment. I think if it's not working for him, if he's getting bullied by Van Dijk and we're not really giving him the service and Henderson's blocking the through balls to him and things like that, then we might be looking to do something different. And that's when we might want to go in behind with Werner. We might want to bring Havertz on to drop a little bit deeper and then be in more of something a little bit different. I think Lukaku will try and sort of like roll off the shoulder of Matip. Hopefully, if we're lucky, Konate plays instead, even though he's very good as well. That Van Dijk Matip partnership is excellent. So it's not going to be an easy game at all for Lukaku, and it's definitely going to be sort of like not a make or break moment for him, but it's going to be certainly like, okay, you've shown us what you can do. You've shown us now you've got the motivation. You've shown us you can score the goals. Now do it on the biggest stage of all.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with all that. It's a full house for Lukaku, and football changes so quickly. It really does. I mean, I'd love this to come full. Well, it wouldn't really be full circle, but it would be a great story. A Lukaku winner in the cup final. Let's hope it happens. To be honest, I don't care who scores as long as we lift that trophy. But it would be fitting for Lukaku to get that winning goal with everything he's been through this season. But yeah, that rounds out our lineup, lads. One thing left: score predictions. George, I'll come to you first, Matt. I know you love a prediction. Is it going to be 3rd time lucky for the Chelsea? I mean, the thought of walking back down Wembley Way with that arch lit up in red again, hearing "You'll Never Walk Alone" and a third FA Cup final defeat in a row, it's enough to make me want to cry. It simply can't happen.
I'll never walk again.
Yeah. I mean, it simply can't happen. It really can't. What are you expecting, mate? Extra time, penalties done in 90. I mean, all options are on the table.
Yeah, I mean, let's firstly hope it's a great game of football and that, the 150th anniversary of the most prestigious cup.
Mate, I'd take a 1-0 shitter.
Well, yes, obviously would, as the first FA Cup final at the new Wembley was an absolute shitter, and we managed to win that as well. But I hope it's a good game. I'm sure it will be because the two sides are fitting for it. I just think maybe it will do full circle, and I know we're going to be biased on this podcast with Chelsea fans, but I think we started the season well. We tend to end seasons pretty well. Liverpool are going to have half an eye on the Champions League. That's the big one they want. I don't think the FA Cup, as much as they'll want to keep the quadruple alive, teams don't take it. It's not the biggest one in the world. They'll be looking at, they'll have half an eye on the other one. It could go anything. It could be like classic story. We still don't win in 90 minutes, but I'm going to go 2-1 win to Chelsea. I think there'll be goals, but I mean, whatever my prediction is, it will be the total opposite. Because my predictions are so.
I also fancy a 2-1, but I think it's going to go to extra time. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win in extra time. And also, fun fact is that Tuchel or Klopp will become the first ever German manager to win the FA Cup. So no German managers ever won the FA Cup. I mean, I don't know how many German managers have had in the Premier League, but one of these guys will be the first German to win it. George has gone 2-1. I've gone 2-1 after extra time. Ollie, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly going to be a brilliant game. I'm really looking forward to it. Like we say, 150th anniversary. It's going to be a magnificent game, I think, regardless of what happens. And I've been thinking this for a while now. I think Chelsea are going to win on penalties.
Oh. I don't know if I can sit
the Kepa redemption arc is coming.
Mate, Kepa and Lukaku to score the last two penalties of the shootout.
Let's get the odds up quick.
You never know. But that seems like a good point to round out. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live. Thanks for getting involved in the chat as always. Please do smash a like on the stream. Please do subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate all the support. Trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the season. So make sure if you're watching now and you're not subscribed, click that button and spread the word. Ollie, thanks so much for your time, mate. Pleasure as always, guys. Make sure you check out Ollie on Twitter. Linked both his accounts in the description. So go and check those out. Give him a follow. George, thanks as always, mate. I'll catch you on Wembley Way tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a successful trip for us. One loss and one win from Wembley so far this season. So hopefully I can make that 2 wins to round out the season. We'll see what happens. But hopefully Chelsea can make it third time lucky in the FA Cup, lift that trophy and deny Liverpool the quadruple. That's the ending we all want. Thanks so much to both of you, George, Ollie. Great as always. Thanks a lot. We'll be back. I'll be back Sunday with the match day vlog from the final and the player ratings and match reaction. So until then, enjoy the game, keep the faith, and up the Chelsea, guys.